I'm James Lupton, this is Slothbox, and you're watching episode 3 of the preview show. Today we'll be looking at Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley, and my guest today is UFC star Paddy The Baddy Pimblett, as he gives us his take on this fight from an MMA point of view. Hope you enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
Tyron Woodley is known as one of the greatest welterweights in UFC history. Just talk to me a little bit about the difference between MMA and boxing in terms of training, from what you know.
Well, boxers, they just get to focus on one aspect. You know what I mean? Last year when I broke before I had to get surgery on it wasn't a broken hand, it was ligament reconstruction. But before I got my surgery, I was literally just boxing for a couple of months. And then after my surgery, because I couldn't grapple, I was just boxing. Even with one hand, I was going in the gym and just boxing. So worked a lot on my footwork and other stuff, and my head movements and my defence, and just mainly my right hand. So a lot of people will see that right hand in the next fight. But it's only one aspect what you have to focus on. Where I'm in fight camp, I've only been getting like 2 boxing sessions in a week, because obviously I have to do my jiu-jitsu, my wrestling, my other striking with my kicks, knees and elbows in, my S&C. So boxing, that's why the level of boxing is so good in boxing, because that's all they focus on. But like, it's a lot harder to get good at MMA. I don't care what anyone says.
For Tyron Woodley, in terms of his training for this fight against Jake Paul, is it going to be a lot harder for him to focus just on that one thing, do you feel?
No, I think his boxing will come on a lot quicker, because he will just be focusing on that. As I say, I took a couple of months out of MMA training, I think about 6 months, just to focus on my boxing. And I think every I tried to showcase it in my last fight, but I didn't get much of a chance. In my next fight, everyone's going to see how much my boxing's improved. And it was taking that a few months off from grappling and just focusing on my striking what made it so much better and so much more advanced.
From somebody who, obviously, a UFC fighter now as well, in the MMA background, for me, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know all about it. I'm not an avid MMA fan. I don't watch it religiously like I do boxing. So for me, I couldn't tell you if Woodley's better at his stand-up game or his grappling, his wrestling, things like that. For yourself, what do you feel Woodley is best at? Do you feel he's got a good stand-up game?
He's definitely more of a grappler. Like, most of his fights, what he won, he'd wrestle people and take people down and ground and pound. But he's won a lot of fights with his big overhand right. You know what I mean? He knocked Robbie Lawler out with it. He dropped Darren Till with it and then finished him after it. You know what I mean? So he's got, like, the one shot I can see him landing is that overhand right. I personally think he is going to land that overhand right, and he's going to put Jake Paul down.
With Jake Paul, you'll see his last fight with Ben Askren, another UFC fighter.
Yeah, but he can't even throw a punch, lad. Like, literally, Ben Askren cannot throw a punch. Like, not even taking the piss, lad. If you watch some of his UFC fights, or even before the UFC, watch some of his MMA fights, it's abysmal. Like, it's embarrassing. Like, when it come out that Jake Paul was fighting Ben Askren, we were all just like, what? You've picked the person with the worst striking in the whole of MMA. There's only one other person he could have picked, really, and it's like Ryan Hall, who was another jiu-jitsu master. Know what I mean? Like, there's not many people he could have picked what had worse striking than Ben Askren.
Because of that, how much of a shock will Jake Paul be in for?
I think he's in for the shock. I think he thinks Woodley's more of a grappler, but as I say, Woodley's knocked several top welterweights out and TKO'd them or dropped them. So, like, he's actually in there with a proper fighter, someone who's not just going to roll over and take it and get beat. Know what I mean?
Absolutely. Obviously, he's going in there. I suppose with Woodley, he's got the champion mentality going. Yeah. So how big a part does that play?
That plays a big part. Know what I mean? A very big part. Like, he has got, as you say, and the worst thing I think what's going to bite Jake Paul on the arse even more is Woodley's lost 4 fights on the bounce in MMA. So it's going to be burning him deep inside. He's going to be thinking, oh my God, I need to come out here and fucking put it on him. I need to let everyone know that I'm not a pushover and I'm not past it. Know what I mean? And I think that's what he's going to do, to be honest. I genuinely think Tyron Woodley's going to come out, land a few overhand rights. Jake Paul's going to shit himself and cower, and think he's going to end up landing it. I really do.
In terms of Jake Paul, we spoke obviously a lot about Woodley. In terms of Jake Paul, do you rate what he's doing? Do you feel he could become a solid boxer?
No. In short term, I'd box him tomorrow. If I got a phone call now, and I really genuinely think over the next few years it could happen, because when I have my debut in a few weeks, I'm going to blow up, and I'm going to end up with hundreds of thousands of followers, maybe even millions, and it's going to go wild. And I can see him thinking the same. Oh, that Paddy the Baddy, he's a grappler, all that, know what I mean? And I'll fucking take his head clean off his shoulders, lad. Like, he would be bigger than me, he would, but I'm a fat little bastard, lad. I love eating loads of food. I'd eat loads of food, I'd put a bit of weight on, and I'd smash his fucking teeth in.
Get down the Baltic market and then over to fight Jake Paul.
Yeah, lad, but more than the Baltic market, lad, down to Casper's, lad, and get on my man, the Coffee Man, lad, and just eat pure shit, balloon up and smash his fucking head in.
Do you rate it in terms of outside the ring, obviously the business side of it? Do you rate what he's doing?
Oh yeah, I
He's
do. I think he's smart. He's very smart. You see fighters in gyms in the UK do that, lad. There's a few gyms in the UK where they pick their opponents, lad. They pick and choose who they fight, and they fight bums until they get to 10-0, 11-0, 12-0. And then when they do end up fighting someone good, they get the fright of their life. And that's what I think is going to happen to Jake Paul. I think he's bit off more than he can chew. Like, he does look like his boxing's getting better, but it's bound to when you're sparring every day and you're training every single day. It's bound to get better. You know what I mean? But it's still not at that level where he thinks it is. Like, he thinks he's world level soon. I seen a list the other day of people that he wants to box. Lad, is he taking the piss? Like, 9 out of 10 people on that list will smash his face in for him.
Well, the big one is obviously talking about Canelo Alvarez.
Oh, lad, it's just stupid. But give Canelo his due, even though Canelo knows that he'd get a lot of money out of it. He's like, I'm not even been putting myself on that level. I wouldn't belittle myself to that.
I want to touch on, you mentioned a moment ago about cherry picking. In boxing, a lot of fans feel like there is a bit of cherry picking or easy matchmaking. In the UFC or MMA in general, there's none of that. It's mainly 50-50 fights.
Oh no, in the UFC, there's none of that. But in MMA in general, there is, lad. As I say, especially on the UK scene and in places like Brazil. No, like that's why I think my opponents I am fighting next is not going to be into the level of me, because since I was 17 and turning pro, apart from like my first 3 fights, because my first, like, you get gimmies your first few. Like, my first fight, my opponent was like 4-24. Know what I mean? But it's just like boxers where they get a journeyman. Then I fought someone who was 0-1. Then I fought someone who was the debut. And then after that, I fought on Cage Warriors and and I only fought on one other promotion. I had 2 fights and they were title fights. So every single person I've fought since then has been a good standard and has fought good people, where my opponents who I'm fighting went 8-0 outside the UFC in Brazil, fighting crabs. And when he got in the UFC, it hindered him, because he's 1-2 in the UFC. When I beat him, he's probably going to get cut, which is, I don't want to end someone's dream like that, but it's one of them things. I'm coming in there to take his head off his shoulders.
In terms of mentality, so like I say, UFC fighters, Woodley's been in UFC for a long time, and it's almost like UFC fighters aren't scared to take a loss, whereas boxers can be. Where's that mindset and mentality?
Because in MMA, there's too many ways to lose, lad. Like, that's another thing. In MMA, there's too many ways to lose. Everyone loses. Like, people say I hate Khabib because before he retired, I was saying I hope he loses just because everyone loses. But it's not that I hate him. Like, I don't. Know what I mean? I think he's the 155 GOAT. But I just think, like, even his record, if you look at his record, lad, until he was like 15-0, he fought bums. Like, he got to 15-0 or something fighting absolute crab sticks. Like, that's why I say he's only beat like 3 or 4 good people. Like, it happens in, as I was saying before, it happens in Brazil, Russia, a few other countries, even the UK fighters do it over here. But that's where, like, good organisations come into play. So like, as I say, Cage Warriors never give me any given fights. Know what I mean? Look at some of the records that people have fought on Cage Warriors. Some of them have got mixed records. Like I think Alexis Avidas was like 19-10, but 19-10 in MMA is not a bad record. Know what I mean? And he'd fought very good people leading up to fighting me. So a lot of people, like on other shows, they will, but Cage Warriors, UFC, the two shows that I've fought on and I'm about to fight on, like they don't give you any pick'ems, lad. Don't give it like they are all pick'em fights or who's gonna win. But in other organisations they will, just like boxing. And I think that's what's turning a lot of people away from boxing, because like prime example of it, he's a reality star, absolute divvy. Tommy Fury, lad. The records that of the fighters he's beat are just abysmal and embarrassing. Like when I said before, Jake Paul had only beat like one on that list, and that's the one I'm on about. It's probably like the only person who he beat on that list, because Tommy Fury's absolutely snide.
Obviously, Fury's now fighting on the undercard as well. They're looking at building that again in terms of marketing. We mentioned UFC fighters don't mind taking the loss as such. There's no pressure on that, taking a loss. For Jake Paul, having a loss on record, whether it be to Woodley or whoever in the future, does that send impact? Does that put him out of boxing?
No, I don't think it puts him out of boxing. It hurts his market value. But as I say, he's a YouTube star, isn't he? So no matter what, all these little kids on YouTube are going to continue to buy his fights, whether he loses 5 fights in a row. But we both know Woodley beats him. I think personally he's going to beat him. But let's say if Woodley beats him, he's going to take a step down in competition. 100%. He's going to start fighting people who aren't as good, and he's going to get better before he ends up calling out against someone like Woodley, who we all know is high-level MMA, but he's not boxing. Like, I'd love to see him fight someone like Anderson Silva, even though Anderson Silva's well past his prime and he's getting old. Anderson Silva would absolutely box his head off.
Is there any other UFC stars that you would feel would beat him in their stand-up game, purely on their boxing?
There's too many to name. Literally, there's too many to name, lad. Like, literally, there is too many to name. Like, at middleweight, I could name 5. I can Paulo Costa to knock him out, Robert Whittaker, Darren Till, Adesanya, even little Kelvin Gastelum probably knock him out. And you look at the welterweights, think Usman would beat him. Colby Covington would probably beat him in a stand-up match. Vincente Luque, Leon Edwards. No, like seriously, lad. Like the amount of MMA fighters who he could pick to fight who would beat him is there's a long list, lad. A very long list. Because of
Jake Paul's limited experience and ability, do you feel that size doesn't really matter in terms of his opponents?
Well, size always matters. You know what I mean? I don't. When people say that, size always matters, but it depends on the skill level. Like if the skill level's close, then size does matter. It goes without saying. But when there's a big depth in a skill level, size doesn't matter as much. Look at Mayweather versus Logan Paul. You know what I mean? Mayweather could have knocked him out anytime he wants. And I haven't even watched it all, but I've seen where Mayweather hits him and it looks like he keeps him up on his feet. Know what I mean? Like, that was just embarrassing.
And obviously, whilst I've got you on here as well, it'd be rude not to talk about your fight, which in September the 4th, it's been announced finally, UFC debut. Just how buzzing are you for it?
Oh, I can't wait, lad. I absolutely, genuinely cannot wait. Like, I've had a few good bits of news today as well. I'm going to London on Monday to get my visa from the embassy. My manager got on me saying that my Instagram will be back up and running in the next 24 hours. So, and my fight's being announced. So, I've had a good day today, lad, and it's only going to get bigger and better over the next few weeks, lad, because when I get there fight week, I'm going to be absolutely headlocking UFC officials. Everyone's going to know who I am. And then I'm going to put on an absolute showcase for however long the fight lasts. I can't see him getting out the first, but there's no way he gets out the second. And then I'm going to have a belter post-fight interview because I can't help myself, lad. That just rolls off the tongue. And then I'm going to become a global superstar. It's that simple.
Quickly sum it up into some brief words in terms of your journey. Turning pro at 17, taking over pretty much Cage Warriors, and now signing with UFC, the pinnacle of MMA.
Well, this is just the beginning. Like, this really is just the beginning. People keep saying, oh, you finally got to UFC, lad. This is just the beginning. I'm only just getting started, lad. I'm only 26 years of age, 27 in January. Randy Couture was still fighting till he was about 48, lad. If I want to, I've got another 20 years, but I can't be asked. I've got another 10 years and I'm going to make an impact on this sport like no one else. Like, just like, I hate to say his name, but just like Conor did, I am going to make an impact on this sport like that. It's going to be little kids running around with hairdos like me, calling themselves Paddy The Baddy.
Another 10 years of Paddy Pimblett, potentially a Jake Paul fight down the line, future UFC world champion. Paddy, thank you for joining me.
You are more than welcome, my man.